Welcome, everyone. So great to have everyone here today. I think this topic is so relevant to today's age in so many ways. So I'm very excited about sharing with you. Here is the agenda for our session today. We're going to start with a little overview of design thinking. I know many of you on the call probably have either done some work in the area of design thinking or have somehow stumbled upon it and are familiar with it. But just to make sure we're all on the same page, and for those who haven't, so we have a little intro, and then we're going to really focus on brainstorming and being creative and how that can work and bringing AI to the picture. So how can AI be our creativity companion throughout? And talking about AI, there are so many ways in which it can complement the creativity process. So these are the ways that I typically highlight. Now, in today's session, obviously in the short session, I'll probably demonstrate those couple areas I highlighted, like how do we extract key insights? How do we use AI as our brainstorming partner? And for those who want to know much more, we do have the workshop coming up in October, so that will be a great opportunity for you if you think you want to do more from what we covered today. That will be the opportunity to join us and actually do some real work with AI and design thinking. So for now, let's start first with design thinking. What is it? So simply defined, and there are many ways to define design thinking, but I'm just going to pick this simple but meaningful definition. So it's a structured approach for problem solving. It could be a problem or it could be an opportunity. And this approach fosters creativity, innovation, and team collaboration. It almost sets like new standards for how we collaborate, how we get ideas from everyone and then merge those ideas into something meaningful, and how we innovate in the process. So that is a simple but hopefully meaningful definition for design thinking. Now, if you additional, I want to call them guiding principles related to the whole philosophy of design thinking. So first, it's a human-centric approach, which means we pay close attention to the people who are involved, and we try to understand their worries, their concern, how is this problem impacting them. We kind of put ourselves into their shoes to imagine how things are like from their perspective, which you may have heard it being called empathy in design thinking. So empathy with our stakeholders. We also try to understand their hopes and what get them hopeful. So we really put a lot of emphasis on understanding the human side. And then the whole process is about creativity. It's about coming up with creative ideas. And the one thing I want to mention to you, creativity is not a mystery. Sometimes it's easy to think that, oh, am I creative or not? Is my team creative or not? Creativity is something we all can get to, we can prepare for, and we can make happen. And the process is the way to make that happen. And then it's very collaborative. It's a great way to get a team working in a way that's very much helping everyone be aligned and adding the ideas and creating a total that's much greater than the sum of the individual pieces. So it's very collaborative. It's iterative. We we tend to work in small iterations that are more manageable, and then we also don't mind reiterating. So if we go to a step and we find new information that causes us to go back a step or two, we welcome that, because now we know when we go back a step or two, we're going to proceed forward with so much more certainty, and we're much more likely to come up with this innovative solution. We love prototyping and design thinking before spending too much time creating this great solution. We create quick prototypes, several of them, ideally at least three, and then we show them to our stakeholders and get real feedback and get their help in co-creating the final solution. And that's why we know it's gonna work. And of course, we do a lot of testing throughout. So now, so these are the guiding philosophies, I call them. Now, the process itself can vary, and there are many ways to put the whole design thinking into a process. So over the years, we've kind of worked with the process I'm going to share with you right now, which is divided into 4 phases. The first phase is what we call the what is phase, which is about exploring and understanding current reality. And we spend some time in here to make sure we do understand current reality. And then we move to the what if phase, which is imagining what the future could look like. So that is coming up with ideas for how we could address this problem or opportunity. And then moving into the what wows phase, so moving ideas into visual and interactive prototypes that can help our stakeholders fully understand and feel what those solutions could bring to them. And then moving into the what works phase, which is taking the feedback from our stakeholders to formulate the final solution. So the whole process might look like this. So this is the process we teach in the workshops that we do at Stanford with the technology training group. So there are 12 steps that we go through. Obviously, in the time we have today, I'm just gonna quickly tell you about the steps and then get into brainstorming because I really want you to see what this looks like when it's reimagined and done in a way that's very conducive to creativity and innovation, and then talk about how AI can get into this picture. So the first part, which is understanding current reality, starts with spending some time defining the problem clearly. This is half the battle. If the problem is not well defined, nothing is going to work and no end outcome is going to be something we're happy about. And this is actually AI can help throughout this phase, and that's what we go through in the longer workshop in October. So defining the problem, planning how we're going to research it, doing our research, stepping back and trying to find out what insights did we get from that research, and adjusting the problem definition accordingly. So we spent some time on this, and now that we're more certain that we have a real problem that's well defined, well researched, well understood, we move into the ideation stage, which is the brainstorming. So let's get into the brainstorming to show you what that could look like, and then we're gonna bring some AI ideas into the picture. So first, the brainstorming process. So the brainstorming process that we teach involves 5 steps. And the first step would be to pose a trigger question. The question can be a big question, like what ideas do you have to solve this problem? That's a very big and broad question that pretty much invites all kinds of ideas. Or the question can be very focused on one specific aspect of the problem or anywhere in between. But the idea is we need to start with a clear question. Otherwise, the brainstorming goes in all different directions, and at the end, it may not add up to having some convergence into something useful. So that's why the trigger question is so key. And it also makes sure everyone is aligned and everyone knows what we're aiming towards. So then we write down ideas, and we do this individually in silence. And we do it on post-it notes, one idea per post-it. As you will see soon, if you're scattered in different locations, you might do it in an online environment like the one I'm going to be using today, which is Miro, or whatever other environment you may have access to. And we do one idea per post-it. And then we try to encourage everyone to write full sentences, so not like cryptic couple words that nobody else can understand. Um, and then we move into sharing ideas. But before I talk about sharing, I'm actually going to demonstrate sharing to you, so this starts to make more sense. So I have a little question for you, and you can answer it in the chat if you would like. Let me open that chat so I can see when you answer things. So why do we do that individually and silently? I know that's not a difficult question, but I'll be curious to see what some of you might volunteer. So why do we do that? To avoid judgment. Very good, Bonnie. Thank you. Judgment, by the way, is the number one enemy of creativity. So typically, that's another question I sometimes ask, like, what's the number one enemy of creativity? There are many, by the way, but number one is judgment. And there are three ways we judge. We judge other people's ideas, we judge our own ideas, and we fear being judged. And all of those can totally suppress creativity. So that's why when we do this brainstorming, the first thing we say, all ideas are welcome. All ideas are welcome. We're not after assessing and evaluating and comparing ideas. We just want ideas. We're after quantity, not quality. Some people get shocked when we say that. We're after quantity, not quality. But you know what? The only way to get to the high quality, brilliant ideas is to go after quantity, take judgment out of the equation, and let people come up with all the ideas. So back, let's see what you guys shared with me here. So you aren't influenced. Thank you, Karen. Yes, because we don't want people to be influenced by other people's ideas. We want everyone to think freely and to feel they have the freedom and the space. And thank you also, Sherry, for talking about introverts. We want to make space for everyone to be heard, not let the introverts just step back and not be heard while the people who tend to be more outspoken take over. So this process is a huge step forward in creating that kind of environment that's inclusive, that respects everybody, that gets all ideas on the table. So yeah, I think I love all these things that you are sharing there, and I think hopefully I'll get to more of them later. But let's keep going. So sharing ideas. So let's talk about sharing ideas. So this deserves a little demo. So um, let's say we're a team of whatever, 4 or 5 people. We posed the question, we wrote down our ideas individually, silently, and now it's time to share ideas. So we do that one person at a time. Let's say I'm the first person to share. I take my first idea and I read it out loud first so people can hear it, so auditory learners can actually get it and stay focused and stay engaged. And then I put it on the board so that visual learners can see it. And so we have a good record of it, so we can be building on those ideas. And then I take the second idea I have, I do the same thing. And then the third idea I have, and I do the same thing. And let's say that's all I have for now, those 3 ideas. And now the next person goes. So they take their first idea, they share it verbally, and then they realize this idea is actually related to this idea already on the board. So what do? They put it right below it. So we're starting to create clusters of ideas that relate to each other that might lead to bigger and better ideas as we go. And we're doing this organically. We're not really spending a lot of time organizing and so forth. We're just letting it happen. And then they take the next idea. It happens to be totally new, so they put it in a new cluster, and then maybe their next idea belongs here. And then the next person goes, so I'm going to mimic here what it looks like to have a bunch of people doing this together. So I'm just going to add a bunch of new post-its here, mimicking what this would look like in real life. And then just a few more. And let's say now we're done. So first of all, what we did here is already a breakthrough, because what happens is in a traditional brainstorming, what happens is the few people who are outspoken and who may have more expertise, or maybe they have more authority, they come up, they suggest their ideas, and we march forward with this limited number of ideas. So what we did in this process, we made room for all those ideas. And now, marching forward, we're going to come up with a much more interesting solution when all those ideas are on the table. In addition, the people who share those ideas are going to be so engaged, and they're going to feel ownership. And it's going to be a whole different way of working when we approach things this way. So then comes the discussion. And now during the discussion, all kinds of things can happen. Well, first of all, there's something I want to mention. During the sharing, let's say I'm sharing, what's everybody else doing? They're listening. This is where we practice deep listening. Let's say the person who put this idea here, let's say I think it should go here. I'm not going to interrupt and ask questions and make suggestions. I'm going to let them put it where it belongs. So the sharing time is time to make space for everyone to share the way they want to share, put their ideas the way they think they belong to. And we're just focusing on the ideas, paying attention with no interruption. When the discussion comes, that's when I would say, I think this should go here. That's why. Maybe I convince them, maybe they convince me. And then we start to discuss and ask questions and come up with whatever else we might come up with. And then look what might happen. I'm going to put these in green, but in real life, they wouldn't be green. They would be just a normal color. But I'm curious, do you have any thoughts on what those two green post-its are? So again, would love to see in the chat a few suggestions. So what do you think are those green post-its here? Okay, thank you. Okay, Casey, you got it. New ideas. And also, I think Keithy, you got it. New ideas. These are not themes. They're not questions. They're not clarifications. They're new ideas that we had no clue about before. The only reason we got to uncover this idea because we pretty much brought to the surface all these obvious ideas, and we went into new directions, and then this one became possible to see. And same here. The only reason we got here because we kept going deeper and deeper and deeper, and then we allowed this level of depth to surface. So remember early on I said, creativity is not something that is a mystery. Creativity happens when we do our job in defining the problem, researching the problem, creating that knowledge base. Creativity doesn't come out of nowhere. It needs a knowledge base. And when we talk to people and research and accumulate that knowledge base and then step back, design good questions that elicit good ideas, and then make room for everyone to share their ideas, and then make room for a free-form discussion, that's when creativity happens. Okay, so then after discussion, we label. So each of those clusters gets assigned a label. So each of those clusters gets assigned a label. The label can be a theme that binds these together, or a bigger idea that these are part of, or maybe a category that these ideas belong to. So look what we did. We took one question and we turned it into a whole board of ideas that are fully flushed out, that are nicely organized, more ideas added to them. And now we have something to work with. So typically, let's now move briefly to AI. So typically, before AI, one more logistical thing. So if I were to do this with a team of 4 or 5 people, I probably would create this Miro board for them and have each person take on, a frame. And then I would pose the trigger question. Let's say the trigger question is this. I have actually a trigger question in mind for us, just to give us something a little more tangible. Um, so that trigger question would be this. So let's say we're trying to figure out a way to make our meetings more effective, our work meetings, especially that some of us are remote, some of us are hybrid, etc. So this could be the trigger question. In the age of remote and hybrid work, how can we make our work meetings be effective? So that's just a sample question. So then I pose the question, everybody, so each person will have their own frame. So this will be team member 1, this will be team member 2, 3, 4. Let's say we have four team members, and they put their post-its right here. So everyone puts their post-it right here, and this person puts their post-it right here. And then after we do step 2, which is silently, individually put your ideas, then we move into the sharing. We share the questions right here on the board. So we start to create these clusters, and then we do the discussion and everything else. So how about adding one more team member, and that can be the AI team member. Can give it a name if you want. So in this case, in the case of the question I asked, I can go to the Stanford playground and I can say, in the age, how can we make our work meetings effective? And I would like some ideas for my brainstorming session. And I'm likely to get some really good ideas that I can add to the board and leverage the amazing, vast amount of information that's available in the AI models. I don't want to replace my thinking with those ideas. I want to add them to my ideas. So this is where we enhance what we're all bringing, and we have AI be just another partner in our brainstorming. Because why? Because our ideas, the ones that come from us, are actually equally important and actually even more relevant because we know our audience, we've talked to our audience, we understand the human side, and that's irreplaceable, and that's what AI is not likely to provide. So it's not going to replace. I think sometimes there is a fear of, oh, why doesn't AI solve the problem? Well, because the problem is probably unique and it has sides that aren't as tangible, that only the team and the human contact can detect and can take into account. But AI can be an amazing companion because it's going to give me everything that everybody else have come up with, from a broad range of knowledge that otherwise will not be accessible. So this is just an example of how AI could be a participant in the brainstorming process. Now let's continue though. Let's go into another aspect of AI, which is extracting key insights. So this is an example of, let's say we did a brainstorming session and this was the outcome. So this is what a team did, by following pretty much the process that I outlined earlier. Um, so now how do we make sense out of this? So I'm going to show you a few steps that can help tremendously in leveraging AI to make this totally usable, which otherwise would take a long time for us to do it just by looking at this and summarizing it in a document, or putting it into a document and then trying to get meaning out of it. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to upload a screenshot of that board that we did. So basically, this is exactly a screenshot of this. And then I'm going to, what's the tendency to do here? There's a tendency to say, can you summarize these ideas? Okay, that's not what I want. I don't want a summary. A summary means I'm losing a lot of valuable information that may not make it into the summary. Actually, what I want is I want this information organized. Can you organize these ideas for me, putting them into categories that are relevant? I might ask also, can you also complete the sentences, because some people are going to write things in a little cryptic way. Can you complete the sentences when necessary? And now I'm going to have a really nice, very nicely articulated, very much in sync with what was shared without missing a beat. So I have everything that was shared that can be now easily incorporated into other plans and other documents, and communicated to people without losing any of those ideas. Now, I might add one more thing, and this is where I was going with this. I want to extract key insights. And now we're leveraging AI to its fullest, because it's going to look at all these ideas and then try to extract from them some insights that we may not otherwise see. So I'm going to say, can you give me the key 3 to 5 insights from these ideas? And that is when we started to think of knowledge as being different levels. And of course it helps to look at the data and the details and all the ideas, but another level that's really essential for any innovative work or any problem solving work is to extract this into the bigger insights. And that is what it can do for us. So yeah, so those are the two really important aspects of how we might leverage AI. And as I mentioned to you, so these are couple glimpses at where we can go from this in the full process. When it comes to the full process, it can be helpful throughout, starting with the definition of the problem. So when we define a problem, what is one of the biggest challenges in a problem definition? There are many, by the way, but one of them is that a problem definition can be already biased towards a certain solution. And when it is biased towards a certain solution, it's likely that it's gonna limit our ability to broaden our thinking and to come up with something that's really compelling. So that's why we can get AI's help to help us make sure that the problem definition is clear, is not biased, and it's fully defined. So for instance, in the design thinking process that we teach at Stanford, we have a very clearly structured problem definition template, and we ask participants to fill it out for the problem they're trying to solve, and then we ask ChatGPT in this case to critique it, to say, is this conformant with the template? Does this have any problems? And then come up with an enhanced definition that will be much more likely to be much more helpful. Now, of course, this is a conversation. So whenever we do this, we reflect on the results that we get, and we make adjustments, and we ask for further questions or clarification. So it's a back and forth thing that ends with having a really clear definition. And then the research. The research is a huge aspect where AI can help throughout the research, from coming up with interview questions and interview questionnaire to actually to interview the AI tools. So as I mentioned earlier, there's so much knowledge, there's so much in those models. So why not interview them as if you're interviewing a stakeholder, and then see what you might uncover? It does not replace interviewing your key stakeholders, making sure you have a good stakeholders map, and you've identified everyone who has impact on this problem, can influence this problem, or who's impacted by this problem. So it doesn't replace any of this. It just adds another whole dimension that can be really helpful. And we've talked about the insights and how identifying insights from the research and from the brainstorming can become so much easier, and so forth. So, continuing just a little bit here to give you a few ideas, where do we go from here? So after we do all the brainstorming and extract, ideas and insights and whatever else, we move into developing concepts for solutions and creating what we call pitches, which is a summarized document that really shows what each of those concepts, what do they look like, how are they going to be beneficial to our stakeholders, how are they going to address the problem and the needs of the people who are involved. And in each of those steps, again, running it through the AI tools and getting it to critique our solution and our pitch can go a long way. And then from there, we move into prototyping, and prototyping meaning taking each of those concepts and coming up with a way to make it more tangible, to be able to share it with our stakeholders, make it more visual, make it more interactive. And in that process, there's so much that where we can get ideas from AI tools into what should we include in this prototypes. Are flow charts the best way to present this solution, or is there some other way? And on throughout getting feedback and formulating a solution. Yeah, so I think a couple more thoughts, overall insights, and then we'll open it for any questions, comments, thoughts that you have. Would love to hear from you. So one is AI is a companion. We decide on how to pull AI in and out. We're the ones who reflect on whatever we get back and adjust and accept or not accept. We're the ones who have the human understanding of the problem. So we bring that piece, and we let the AI tools and models give us information that otherwise we wouldn't be able to get. So they are truly, the AI tools can be truly a companion throughout the process. So that's one thing I want to mention. The other thing I want to mention, in order to get good results from any AI tool, we need to give it enough context. And this is where we see a lot of sometimes people and teams using AI. This is where they sometimes don't give that enough emphasis. If we just put prompts out there, we're going to get generic information that may or may not be very relevant and helpful and deep and meaningful. It may sound good, it may look good, but it may not address the nuances of the problem we're trying to solve, of our stakeholders, etc. If, however, we give a lot of context, so for instance, after we define the problem, if I want to ask a question about research, I would upload the problem definition first and then ask my question. So now there is a whole different context. I might even, if I have certain stakeholders that are really important that I need to pay close attention to, I might upload information about those categories of stakeholders so that the questions I ask and the information I get is very relevant. So context is key when it comes to being able to ask and get information that's more relevant. Uh, yeah, so I think with this, um, it's time to kind of give you a chance to ask questions or to add. I'm sure many people on the call have been somehow in one way or another working with AI, with creativity and problem solving. So if you have things to add, please feel free. We love to use this as a forum for also sharing ideas. Have you used Miro AI for tighter integration? I've used it to some degree, but not enough to be able to comment on how does it compare to using some of the AI tools in the AI playground. But definitely it's an area that I'll be exploring in much more detail. And I'm curious, Don, or anybody on the call, if you have, and if you have a comment to share about it, like the Miro AI. And if not, that's okay. This can become part of our exploration as we continue to explore all these tools and possibilities.
And if you like, Pierre, for the recent
Yeah.
question that came in from Bonnie, I can speak on that one.
Oh, great. Yeah, please.
This is the question on the can you save or archive your prompts and results if working through the Stanford AI Playground? First off, for the Stanford AI Playground, it is available to anybody who's part of the Stanford community who has a Summit ID, whether it be a free or a full Summit ID. And on this page here, you notice that on the top of the page, you see the little bookmark. So the very top is in the middle of the page, actually.
Oh, this one.
Yep. This where you can
Yeah.
be able to bookmark your current prompt or your current conversation here, and then be able to save it as a bookmark. And then on the left-hand side in that toolbar, or the little sidebar that opened up, this is where you can view all of those bookmarks that you've saved.
Mhm.
Another quick thing
Mhm.
is on the upper right-hand side of the page. You see a little, looks like a little chat bubble with the little quote marks inside of it, right to the right of that. There we go. So here's where you can actually be able to create and save prompts and be able to have quick access to prompts that you've used before. And instead of just bookmarking them, you can always be able to just use this as your prompt starter moving forward. And I put a little link inside the chat earlier about the AI Playground 101 class. So if you're interested in learning more about all these different features inside of the AI Playground, please feel free to take a look inside the chat. We'll also send a follow-up email to everybody who RSVP'd with more of these resources. Thank you for your
Mhm.
time.
Mhm.
Or I should say thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Don. That's very helpful. So I'm gonna try to navigate through the questions here and see. I'm gonna actually start from the bottom. Alan, is it helpful to tell the AI who they are? You are an expert at XYZ. You are a patient supported by, okay, emergent. Yeah, yeah. As I mentioned earlier, I think the more context, the better. So yeah, if you can share that information, that will help create an output that's much more relevant. And I think partly why you are it's recommended or even required, depending on what data you deal with, to use the AI playground, the Stanford AI playground, is because of the increased security and how data is handled, so you know you're not sharing information in the outside world. And I think, Don, you probably have a lot more to say about this part, but definitely this will be different using the public access to, for instance, ChatGPT. Even though if you use public access, let's say outside work, there are ways to tell the model not to train the model with your data. So this is a setting that you can set. Okay, Renate, that's the question that that was asked earlier about the AI assistant within Miro. And as I mentioned, I think I haven't explored it in detail yet, but I can see that this can bring some of the features we're doing now by going to ChatGPT. You probably will be able to do with the AI assistant. And all those are evolving very quickly. So by tomorrow, there will be a new feature that we we didn't know about. Okay, let's go to Elaine. What may happen if one brainstorming idea directly contradicts other idea? Make meetings shorter versus make meetings longer. That's a good one, Elaine. Um, so in the brainstorming process, we take all ideas. So both of those ideas, even if they're contradictory, they'll make it to the board. And then when we move from brainstorming to developing concepts, so when we cross this line here from step 6 to step 7, this is where we start to evaluate and assess and compare ideas. And at this point, maybe we'll come up with a solution that says um, focused, shorter meetings is part of the solution. So therefore, we take that idea and not the other one that's conflicting. Now, it doesn't mean we may have another solution that considers the other idea. So that, remember, ideally, we would come up with 3 solutions to show our stakeholders. So maybe one solution is oriented to use one idea, and then another solution that have a completely different strategy that might make use of the conflicting idea. So eventually, they may be both useful, but maybe not at the same time in the same solution. Yeah, but we don't worry about that during the brainstorming stage. Here, they're all good. We put them on the board where they belong. When it comes to developing concepts, this is when we move from divergent thinking to convergent thinking, where we start to think which of these ideas together will work and provide a great solution. And that's when conflicting ideas won't come together. Okay, so let's go to where were we? How do you make sure brainstorming ends with actual decision instead of going in circles? Um, yeah, so brainstorming needs space, and depending on the complexity and magnitude of the problem or the project we're working on, we might do several brainstorming sessions, and that could be 2, 3, 4, 5, or many more. And we do as much as we feel like. If more ideas are coming up and they're meaningful ideas, we make room for this. And brainstorming stops when we move to step 7, when we feel we have enough ideas and now it's time to converge. And that's what kind of stops us from keep going in different direction. This is the time where we look at, let me give you a little visual to go with this. So this is the time where we look at the 3 brainstorming sessions that we did, and we say, okay, if we take these ideas with these 2 clusters and this one cluster, those together, they would form a good solution. So this is the move from the divergent thinking to the convergent thinking. Now, I have another thought for you because your question is a really good question, actually, um, which is there is a concept in design thinking, we call it bias to action. So, which means we don't go endlessly in any direction, like especially with brainstorming. So we brainstorm just enough to say, okay, let's stop and see, do we have something meaningful? And then try to form some solutions. And if we feel like, oh, we're actually hitting on some really cool solutions, great. So we made that we take that step and we formulate that solution as one of our three solutions. So yeah, so this bias to action and not going too far in any step or any direction, and keeping like, okay, do we have enough to formulate something? Do we have enough to move to the next step? So it's kind of a little bit of a mindset, this bias to action, which can stop us from brainstorming endlessly. Yeah. Okay. Uh, are there specific AI prompts you use for extracting key insights or AI as a brainstorming partner? Um, yeah, there are. That's a question from Amy. Yeah, so in that course, we get into much more detail about each of the steps, and we have some templates, and we have some prompts, like templates for prompts that you can take and work with in several of those steps. They're not generic prompts. They're, for instance, for defining the problem. So we have a specific template for how we define a problem. So the prompt will say, are these elements present in the definition that we're working on or not? So that's a prompt, but it has very specifics about what what we think should be in a problem definition, and we're asking AI to evaluate the problem definition accordingly. So those are the kind of prompts that we would cover. And by the way, just to make sure you're all aware of the course that I keep mentioning, so that course is coming up on uh, October 7th and October 14th. It's 2 half-day course, and you're welcome to bring your own project so you can work on a real project. And we go through the whole process, including, prompts and ways in which you can leverage AI, and you can be working on your own project. So I'll put this in there. I don't know if you shared that already, Don, but this is the one that for those of you who feel like they want more and they want to do a real project, or do go through this process in much more depth, feel free to check out the course. And I also included a bunch of other things we have coming up as part of the Techies Festival this month. So let's take a couple more questions, and then Don, I'm going to turn it back to you, see if you have any more things to add to what we covered.
Sure thing. I want to
So
check in really quickly, Pierre. Did you see the question earlier from Ken? Let me find it. Scroll up a bit more here. Kim was asking about. Here we go. Does Miro support real-time diagramming of a mind map from the brainstorming session, or anything else you want to add about that?
mm, yeah, I don't actually, I have not done that or experimented with that, but I would check if the AI capabilities in Miro are starting to do this. I haven't encountered that in the usual use of Miro, but it could be a good question. Actually, let's do this. Let's do this live. Is that question you said from Ken?
Yes, and
I'm
Kim,
gonna
was this
try.
regarding AI, or are you just talking about Miro in general when you're collaborating with other people? Please feel free to follow up inside the chat, or feel free to unmute yourself.
Mark. I'm trying to find the exact question from, and because I have an idea.
Okay.
Ken, here we go. Okay, so Ken, let's do this. creative thing. Let's see what ChatGPT tell us about this. Whenever you have a question, um, try it out and see what you might get. So yes, Miro support real-time diagramming. I put the answer in there. Um, so it seems like it does support it, and there is some really cool information. Oh, it's too big to be put in there. You know what? I'll um
Yeah, the great thing is
are
they did,
these
of
are
course, the
these
prompts.
links are
You
these
can,
links shareable with others, Don?
unfortunately, they're only shareable to people at Stanford, but what you can do is if anybody wants to try the prompt, you can put the prompt inside of the chat, and then people can try that inside of AI themselves. Later,
Yeah,
when the prompt comes
actually,
up.
yeah, cool. Yeah, thank you. So actually, it's exactly what Ken asked. So I'll put it again in the chat for those who may have missed Ken's question above. Yeah, so the answer is yes, and it seems like there are templates and there is drag and drop and additional tools available. That's good.
Okay, and Joyce had a great question earlier about to what extent can we use AI as a companion and still describe the ideation process as human-centered design?
Yeah, yeah, good question, Grace. Um, I think it's to the extent we we do our human interviews and feel that we understood the human aspects of the problem. So that's why in the very early stage when we do our research, our planning and our research, one of the core aspects of this research is what is those one-on-one interviews we have with the stakeholders. So that is where the human part comes in, and that is where that understanding of the nuances of our audience that may not be similar to other audiences out there, that is the key. And then when we go to the brainstorming, we're making sure that our ideas based on our research is right there with everything we can come up with from our understanding, and then AI adds to that. So I think it's really the human understanding is almost a prerequisite, and the AI is the additional helper that might come up with things we didn't have a clue about. So it could be really substantial, but it is after we have accomplished that understanding. Elaine, is it possible to ask AI what could you possibly miss or misinterpret? Um, you could. Let's try it. I won't try it right now, but you could. I think what we're encouraging here is exploration. A lot of this, there is no one way, and there is no like right or wrong. I think it's more being willing to consider how these tools can help and then find your way. And our, what we see our role is to show you various potential ways, and then it's up to your project, the nature of the project, the issues you're dealing with, and you cannot you apply your judgment into how much of these tools can be helpful and in what way. There are some ways that are very obvious, like correcting and refining things and combining, looking at the board I showed you earlier, and creating a nicely organized list from it. So there are some ways that are very obvious that it can be helpful, but then beyond that, when you start to get into insights and ideas to solve the problems and all this, that's kind of depends on the nature of the problem, something you would navigate through and find what works best for your situation.
Okay, and a question from Aya we have here says AI is a powerful tool, but it can be risky if we depend on it too much. From your perspective, how can we make sure we're leveraging AI's strengths while still keeping our own skills and judgment sharp?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Um, I would say, how can we how can we make sure we're leveraging AI, but at the same time we're staying kind of in charge anyway. Um, I would say, something when we talk about AI and some of the other courses, one thing we mention is, let me see if I can pull that slide, which might, help me articulate some of this. Um, so so the kind of the philosophy or the guiding principle is this. So using AI, first of all, just the simple basic things like adhering to the policies and guidelines, that's a given. But then continuously asking, is this what I intend to communicate, or is this representing my intention? And reviewing and adjusting. So basically, we're the ones at the end of the day, we cannot say, oh, AI gave me that answer, therefore it's AI's issue, it's not mine. We're responsible for whatever AI gives us, and we use it, we're responsible. So we need to review and adjust and fact check whenever there is a doubt, or whenever there is information that you're getting from AI that you're going to use, you may want to double check that. So those are some principles. But back to design thinking, I think the idea is, can we are we understanding the people enough in order to make sure that we're addressing the people side? And if we are, then the way we're using AI is likely to be leveraging AI in good ways. If we skip that part, or if we minimize that part and rely on AI to give us that part, we're probably going overboard. So again, it's a lot of these issues are, there's a little bit of judgment involved, and checking in with the team, checking in with other people who are doing similar projects, and finding your way. Yeah, always double check.
Hey, as we're coming up at the end of the hour for today's Tech Talk, Pierre, are there any final thoughts that you want to share?
I would say, going back to, giving enough context to AI so you get more relevant information. And number two, AI being a companion, not by any means to replace our understanding and intuition and our attention to the human side. It's a companion to help complement this. Um, and it is also, this is all an exploration. So what I invite everyone to do is to actually try a lot of this and get a feel for it, and decide for yourself how much of it is helpful, how much of it you want to leverage, and so forth. So it's a journey, and it's good to, we actually, today we cannot possibly stay on the side and say, oh no, that's not for me. That's not even a choice right now, because it's happening everywhere around us. Unless we become part of the exploration, we have no voice in influencing where this goes. So that's where we are. Yeah, so with this, thank you, Don, and thank you everyone for being with us, and hope those who want to explore this further with us, hope to see you in the October course.